First things first, obviously yesterday you released another big thing saying that Jessica Mitchell had an idea of where DeOrr's body is, and could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. We can start by talking a little bit about Jessica Mitchell. Jessica Mitchell, in her interview with us, and also we can announce today with law enforcement, did give a partial admission that she knew where her body was up in the mountains. We have tried to work with Jessica as we've tried to work with Vernal. They have both told so many different stories. I think they're confused now on the stories they've told. Starting with Vernal. Vernal has taken 5 polygraph tests on behalf of the FBI, county operators and state operators. He's failed all 5, and I'm not just talking about a spike in a polygraph test. I'm talking about a wave, which shows deception, deep deception. Equally, he has failed some simple contact questions, such as, "Are you here to tell us the truth today?" And he's failed it not only he's not only failed it, but he's failed it to the 99.9 percentile. So that's a very big concern with us. Secondary, let's go back to Jessica Mitchell. Jessica's given 5 interviews, and I will tell you that Jessica's 5 interviews have been at best, I would say, inconclusive, if not outright silliness, lies, missteps, misdirection plays, that sort of thing, with not only us, but with law enforcement. She has taken 4 polygraph tests, again with the state, federal, local, and she has failed all of those. And not only has she failed them, she too has failed them in the 99th percentile. When confronted with that, Jessica began to tell a story, then she stopped telling the story to law enforcement. She did the same thing with us, quite frankly. I think at this point, the investigators on the PSB side, which is our side, we've completely given up on anything that comes out of Vernal or Jessica's mouth. We don't believe anything that comes out of their mouth. And so that has been a concern. And just to give you kind of an example of the sort of things that we have been hearing, they would give us a story, simple stories about going into a store down in DeOrr and to buy certain things. Both of their stories were that they went in one time to buy some feminine products and some food and that sort of thing. And now we know through interviews, or actually they actually told us that they brought the child in, that everyone was playing with the child. They created this big euphoria type scene. So we were able to hunt down not only the store clerk, but the people that bought food and products both before and after the purchase that Vernal made, and they have all told us there was no child in that building. And then the bombshell for us was Vernal had not only gone into the store and purchased once, but he came in and purchased twice. So we were able to find the other people that purchased before and after him, and they also say they do not remember any children. The store clerk says to the 75th percentile there was no child in the store. All the stories they told us could not be checked out. Then you go to Jessica, and it's the same thing. Her basic timeline saying there was a dog in the car while they were getting diesel, and the child was in the car while they were getting diesel. Then we go in and interview the gentleman that's pumping the diesel into the car, who was right there at the back window and could touch 3 inches away from where he's pumping gas and could touch a child's head if the child was there, and he says there was no child and there was no dog. So you start confronting these 2 witnesses with this, and they don't have an explanation, but yet then they try to do a cover play or a disassociation play with us. And of course, we're pretty good at what we do, and we try to rein them back in, and they come up with another story, and we go check that story out, and that story doesn't match. So now we're the second private investigation firm that has been lied to, attempted to be misled, and we're just to the point now with Vernal and Jessica that we're just done with it. The next thing that we discussed is that we can announce today that there was a cadaver dog that was brought in to check certain pieces of equipment. I won't go into the equipment because that's part of the prosecutorial phase, but we believe it is important for the public to know that the cadaver dog did hit in 3 certain areas of the pieces of equipment, which does indicate that there was death or there was some type of fluid, cerebral fluid, blood, whatever it may be, that was in the location where the dog hit, and that that we now know that there was a death. Then the last part that really concerns us, as I've kind of spoke about in the beginning of this interview, is that Jessica herself has confessed to us in law enforcement that she does know where her body is up on that mountain, and she knows where she believes we can get to it. But she won't go through the whole story, and she won't tell us what she knows. She seems to stop. There's a brick wall, and we just can't get her through that brick wall. At this point, that's not going to be for us to do. That's going to be for law enforcement to do, because that brings it beyond. But we have been given an area to look, and we will. Lastly, the grandfather did admit in his last interview with the investigators that he does believe it was an accident. He knows it was an accident. That is very concerning to us, because the grandfather again says, yeah, something happened. Yeah, it was an accident, but he won't go through that wall.
Okay.
I think he's trying to protect his granddaughter. So that's kind of where we are on the case.
Okay, so Mr. Klein, just a question that I have. When we're saying that Jessica has some idea of maybe where the body is, I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Is it so much to the effect of, I know where a body is, or is it more if she answers a question saying, where do you think he is? And she goes, well, he's off in the mountains because that's the last place we saw him. Or is it more of what you're saying is that it's a solid, I know where it is?
I will tell you that is probably one of the greatest questions been asked to me today in these interviews I've done, and I will look you straight in the eyes and I will tell you she knows where that body is. She's made it very clear to us. Okay.
And so I know that there's been some, an attorney came out saying that, the family should, fire you. And just to reiterate, Vernal's father is the one who has a contract with you. That's correct, right?
That is absolutely correct.
And so if they were to, hypothetically, if that was to happen, if he was to, cancel the contract or fire you, what do you guys do from here?
We have already had 2 persons that have stepped up and said that if that does happen, which I'm telling you, we received no formal notice of anything. Apparently it's a news media story or it's a Facebook story. We have received no notice from Dennis Kunz. Dennis Kunz is a fine man. I think he's a little upset right now. I think he's hurting, as all the family members are hurting, but we have heard nothing from Dennis Kunz to that effect. All we've heard is an attorney bloviate and say that we're fired, and we've received no notice of that. So let's keep our eye on the ball here. KIC Texas, all the law enforcement, and I don't speak for law enforcement, but I do talk to them. We all have one thing on our mind besides all these crazy sideshows. That's finding this little boy. I could care less what some attorney in Idaho Falls is bloviating about. He's just trying to talk to the jury pool. That's all he's trying to do. He's trying to vilify me. He's trying to vilify law enforcement. That's normal and natural for a defense attorney to do. So everybody needs to sit down and calm down. That's just what they do. But in the end, we work for Dennis Kunz. That's who we work for. He has not terminated us. But if he does terminate us, and for some reason this blows up on Dennis Kunz and he gets bad legal advice, we have 2 other people that have stood up and that will stand up and hire us for phase 4 of this operation.
And can you tell us who those people are? Or are they in the public? Are they, some other agency? Who are they?
We're not to that point yet, so we're not willing to release that information yet, but we can assure the public that we're not going anywhere.
Okay. And anything that you yourself want to say? The public obviously very invested in this case, wanting to bring this little boy home. A lot of people, comment on your Facebook page saying just that. But anything you want to say to them, just as far as the work you're doing?
You know, I've said this before to you, I think last time we've talked. We're from Texas, and we're pretty friendly people down here, okay? We don't back down from a fight, and we don't back down from a case, okay? But I have never seen the outpouring of care, compassion, and love for my investigation team. Heck, for me, I get cards in the mail, I get emails, I mean, it's overwhelming for us. We've never seen this before. We would just like, on behalf of all the investigators, the 9 investigators on this case, just thank the public of Idaho Falls and Idaho itself, all over Idaho and Montana. The outpouring that we're receiving, that we've gotten, is just unbelievable. And I just want to assure them, we're not going anywhere. We're going to find this little boy. And I'm in it till we find this little boy. Unfortunately, it's not going to be what we would all want, was to bring a little boy home, but we'll be able to bring some family some peace and solace, and you know, it'll be a tough day for Idaho, it'll be a tough day for us and all law enforcement, but we're going to get through this, and you know, we're not going to be scared by an attorney bloviating, and we're not going to be scared by a couple of little strangers threatening us. No, we're not scared. We're going to move forward, and that's what we're going to do, and I promise everybody in Idaho, we're going to move forward.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, as far as the press releases that you've been doing, I know you've worked on hundreds of other cases, thousands of other cases. Is this a typical, I mean, do you typically do these many media releases? I mean, do you typically address the public as often as you have with this case?
We do. And the reason we do is, when you get a high-profile case like this, the reason we give information to the public is so that the public is not strewn, the public is not moved, the public is not misled on what is going on in a case. As you probably know, being in the media and arriving on a story, before you get there, you see a bunch of different stories, and then you get there and the story is completely different than the story you were given. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep the people focused on what's important. You know, there may be just that little piece of information or that little evidence. You know, we as investigators at this team are pretty good, but we're not as good as we could be if we didn't have help from the public. And that's very important. And you see that wave going across the United States in law enforcement. You see that wave going across the United States in the private sector. You see it all over the place. When somebody robs a bank, their picture goes up on social media, and boom, we got them. That's what we're trying to do. The timeline and the information we've released regarding the timeline has been so important. We've had so many witnesses that have come forward and say, hey, guess what? I was the guy standing in line right before DeOrr Kunz. I was there. Here's my receipt. We'll show you. And sure enough, we go back, and sure enough, it's him. Then we bring them into a room and interview them. We couldn't have done that without social media. We couldn't have done that without the public coming forward. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. In Idaho, in many cases that we do, we have never seen this outpouring of care for this child. And so it's great for the case. Communicating to the public is important. We don't want the public to be misled, because I assure you there have been many attempts to mislead the public. Many, many attempts. Through social media, through rumor, through innuendo, now through lawyers. It's just crazy. The funny part about it is the people that really want to find this child are the ones that are standing up saying, no, I'm not listening to that. We're going to focus on this. So I think that using the public sector is very, very important, and to keep everybody focused. So yes, we do use it. Probably not as much as this case, I would think. This case is so racked with innuendo and rumor and conjecture, and it's silliness, absolute silliness. But you know, we can blaze right through it, and we can get to the facts, and that's what we've done.
Okay, and just you've addressed the media quite a bit recently, and you know, obviously we would know this, but the family really hasn't done that as much. They did a little bit in the beginning, but do you think that is there a reason for that? Do you know, have they signed a non-disclosure form with you guys or anything like that?
No, nothing like that. Actually, what I believe is happening now, we have met with Dennis Kunz and some of his family members, and we've laid out the case. We have met with Trina Clegg and her family, who is the family of Jessica Mitchell, and we have laid out the case. I think they were shell-shocked. I think they were upset. I know Trina is a fine woman, and she's been working with her daughter, trying to get her above that brick wall and give the information. Dennis Kunz is a fine man. I think he is in a very, very emotional place. I mean, you've got to put yourself into their place. You know, they have a grandchild that is missing. They have a grandchild that is presumed dead. That hurts. And so that gets your emotions stirred up. I think in this case, what's happening is, I think they're withdrawing and they're stepping back, and I think they're all taking a breath, and they're all trying to regroup and maybe make a run at Vernal and Jessica again. I can't speak for them. I don't know. I'm not part of that. But that would be my long-distance assessment of it. Emotions are running very high again. It seems like it got real quiet as we were going through phase 3. We finished phase 3. We've got the timeline pretty well pinned down, except between 8 o'clock in the morning and 2:26 when the first 911 call came in, because the people that were up there, all 4 of them, all their stories are different. You know, we went fishing, no, we went for a walk, no, we were sitting by the fire, no, I was asleep, no. It depends upon the day of the week, the story they tell you. So, you know, that's our problem. We need to finish between 8 a.m. and 2:26. When we get that finished, you know, we'll have a pretty good idea. But I have a feeling right now, since Isaac Renwell's come forward now and he's proffered, we're vetting his proffer right now. Once we get through that, I think we'll have a pretty good idea within the next 30 days of where we're going next. We'll be flying in a team from Georgia with dogs. We'll be flying in Texas EquiSearch out of Houston, Texas, the world-renowned Texas EquiSearch coming in. We're going to have some professionals on the ground. And, of course, we'll be taking our lead from the fine law enforcement people at the FBI, the task force at FBI out of Washington, D.C., and also, of course, Lemhi County and the sheriff, who has done a bang-up job in Bonneville County Sheriff's Department. All those 3 we'll take our lead from. If we need to step aside on their orders, we will step aside. If we need to step in on their orders, we will step in. But I assure the citizens of Idaho, and I assure you as a reporter, we're bringing the big guns in now. We're coming, and we think we know where we're going with it.
Okay, and another thing I did want to ask you about Isaac. Last time I spoke with you over Skype, we talked about how you weren't really able to get in touch with him, but now what has changed? I guess you've reached out to him, you've talked to him. What exactly has changed, and what is he? Obviously, you can't say everything, but what is the difference now?
The difference now is, I think Isaac is to the point where he realizes that he's getting drawn into something that he's not responsible for, and that by being drawn into this, I believe he thinks he probably was being made a scapegoat in this situation. And I think Isaac has come to the point where he realizes that. When we made contact with him over the last 2 weeks, and by the way, we do have ground operatives on the ground in Idaho Falls working on the case. He was congenial towards us. He made a forward gesture towards us. We accepted that gesture. We had some meetings. I think we're up to like 6 meetings now with him. He has been very forthcoming, laying out the campground with us, laying out where everything was, laying out bits and pieces of the timeline that he can give. Because, of course, he wasn't there, or he was asleep part of the time. So the bits and pieces when he was awake or when he was in camp, he has now been forthwilling. And I think as he comes through and we share information with him, I think it's opened his eyes, and he's like, you know, I'm getting drawn into something that I had nothing to do with. So he is no longer represented by an attorney. His attorney has released him because I think law enforcement and us has visited with his attorney and has visited with Isaac, and we have told him, look, we don't think you're a suspect. We think you know something. We don't know if it's evil intention, though, or if it's just he just knows something that he doesn't think is important, and that's where we are with Isaac. And I'm very proud of Isaac. Isaac has woken up, and I look forward to meeting him myself. I have not met with Isaac personally. My ground operatives have. They've struck up a good relationship with him, and he's proffered some very, very, very good information that helped us fill in some holes.
Okay, and so as a reporter and as an investigator, there are different cases, different stories. Every story, while they might have a similar ending or a similar storyline, everything is different. So what is different about this case for you as an investigator?
Boy, great question. You know, as a reporter, you know, investigators such as myself, whenever we have a missing child, the first thing we want to do is vet family members around. A lot of these cases are solved because family members get scared when something happens to a child, or even more evil intention, kidnapping a child from another parent. So we want to rule out the parents first. And we want to rule out the direct family members that have direct access to this children, and of course, the last person or the persons that have seen the child. So that's where we go as investigators first. Let me say this to you very plainly and very clearly. This case has been hard for me personally, and I can speak for myself personally. I can speak for my crew secondarily, but for me personally, it's been hard because of the cold hearts involved in this. The inability to just simply tell the basic truth. That's pretty cold for a parent. And that's what's been kind of mind-boggling for me. I've been in very many rooms where I have been able to facilitate a confession from a person in an accidental death situation with a child, where they eventually break down and tell the story. I think Jessica is there. I think Jessica wants to tell us the story. I think she wants to get it off her heart and her chest and her mind. I think Vernal, frankly, does not. He's not ready for that yet. Maybe he's just not there. I think that the grandfather, who is very ill and will meet his maker, as we all will, I don't think he wants to carry that to his grave. Because that's a pretty heavy thing to carry to your grave. So, I guess in general what I'm trying to say to you is the coldness of some of the players in this. I think that has been probably an eye-opener for us. I can tell you there's been 2 or 3 meetings I have personally sat in with our team where people get so frustrated they'll throw something on the table or tears will break out because they say, if they just be honest with us, why are they lying? And maybe we'll be able to get that question answered one day, is why so many lies? Why so many misleads? Why mislead the reporters? Why mislead the public? Why mislead law enforcement? Why mislead us? I mean, are we all liars other than them? I mean, they've called everybody liars other than themselves, but yet they can't even get their story straight. So that's the frustrating part for us. Just tell us. I mean, the law is not going to be hard on them if it was an accident. And if it's not an accident, well, then, we'll go that far to say that we'll take it to the next step. But I firmly believe it was an accident that happened out there. I believe that. We're split on the team. Half the team believes it's an accident, half the team believes in evil intent. I don't know. I personally, as the lead investigator, don't see that. But again, we're still assimilating evidence. We're still putting the proffer together from Isaac. And once we get all that put together, we'll know.
And you said the team is split half and half, but you have done cases where there has been an accident, and that's just a tough situation all around. This is basically my last question, but I mean, when dealing with that and when investigating that, and when you're starting to see the wheels turn, I mean, what do you guys do as investigators whenever you realize, well, this was an accident?
When it's an accident, what we do is we try to counsel the person that was responsible for that accident. We try to tell them, accidents happen. It's funny what people do when they get into an accident type situation, an accidental shooting, an accidental traffic incident, an accidental death, anything that's an accident, they're always scared of what's going to happen to them. I guess it's a generational thing. These millennials and some of the latter Generation X young people, they're always in so fear of what's going to happen to me. It's a me thing. They're worried about themselves more than they're worried about what happened or the victim. And I think that that's where society's breaking down. As a guy who's been doing this 26 years and has over 950 missing persons cases, I can tell you that I'm seeing it more and more and more, where late Generation X and the millennials, they're so scared of their own shadows that they're not willing to stand up and tell the truth. But when confronted with the evidence, and when confronted with evidence from folks like the FBI or Lenore or Bonneville County Sheriff's Department, or us in PSB, the look on their face when they go, uh-oh, these guys, just because I told a story, the evidence doesn't match my story. I rather than go, I made a mistake, I was scared, and I'm sorry, they try to double down, or they try to change their story. And that's what gets people in trouble. And so I would plead with anyone out there, and maybe this is a story for you guys one day, that you can go out there with these Generation Xers and these millennials and find out why lying is a sport today. Just tell the truth. It's okay to tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. I would rather go in front of a judge and say, Your Honor, I'm sorry, this is what happened. I panicked. It became a national story. It's horrible. I messed up. Please forgive me. I realize I'm going to get more time for it. I realize I'm in more trouble for it, but please forgive me. And I'm hoping in this case that this is not going to be an example of what not to do if you're the person that creates an accident. We want to teach young people. We want to teach all society. Everybody makes mistakes. All you have to do is admit to it, and we can fix it. Or not fix it, but we can make it a little bit better. In this case, there's nothing to fix. We have a deceased child, in our opinion, based upon fact and based upon our evidence. We have a dead child. There's nothing we can do to bring that child back. There is something we can do to teach society that, hey, how we did it and what we did was wrong. But again, that's up to Vernal, and that's up to Jessica, in my opinion. That's up to those two. We'll see what happens.
And lastly, anything else you want to say to end this interview?
Again, the people of Idaho should be so very proud of their law enforcement up there, the FBI, Bonneville County, Limhi County. There's some guys up there that have kids that are dedicated into this thing, and they're torn up by it. I've seen law enforcement, kind of shake their heads and be torn up by it, and they don't understand either, and we don't understand either. And maybe none of us will ever understand, but just get us there. And I want the citizens of Idaho Falls and the surrounding area in the mountains to know that they have excellent law enforcement up there, and those guys care. I've been on some cases where there's been horrible law enforcement who didn't care. Let me tell you something. These guys care.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking the time to interview with me. On behalf of everyone here on Local News 8 and KIDK, the same. And we will see what happens next.
Thank you, and I hope the citizens pray for us, and I hope they pray for my team. I hope they pray for law enforcement, but most of all, I hope they pray for baby DeOrr. I pray that peace and solace will come for your area, and trust me, we're going to work really hard to try to help with that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. Have a good day.
Great.